One of the things that is always unfair in this comparison is people talk about how much energy it takes to train an AI model relative to how much it costs a human to do one inference query. But it also takes a lot of energy to train a human. It takes like 20 years of life and all of the food you eat during that time before you get smart. And not only that, it took like the very widespread evolution of the 100 billion people that have ever lived and learned not to get eaten by predators and learned how to like figure out science and whatever to produce you, and then you took whatever you took. So the fair comparison is if you ask ChatGPT a question, how much energy does it take once its model is trained to answer that question versus a human? And probably AI has already caught up on an energy efficiency basis measured that way.
If that answer made your brain do a little record scratch noise, that's good. That means your instincts still work. Because what he just did actually has a name, and it's called false equivalence. And once you see it, you're going to start seeing it everywhere. You're going to see it at work, you're going to see it on TV, at politics, and in your meetings, at the dinner table with that one relative. You know who I'm talking about. Yep, that guy. Yep, false equivalence all over the place. My name's Ryan Salestead. I spent 22 years in local government, which means I've had a front row seat to people answering the question they wish you asked instead of the one sitting right in front of you. So let's do it. We're going to call this Logic 101, false equivalence. Okay, so here's the simplest version. A false equivalent is when someone treats two things as basically the same because they might share one trait. And the way they usually pull this off is with a faulty analogy. So let's go back to that clip, right? The question was about environmental impacts of AI, data centers, power grids, industrial scale energy use. A concentrated, man-made system operating at a massive scale. The answer is basically, well, humans use energy too. Okay, cool. Also, humans have bones. That does not make a server farm suddenly a mammal. You hear the trick, right? The overlap is energy. Yes, humans consume energy. Yes, AI systems use energy too. But that doesn't make them the same kind of thing in the way that matters to the question. So, same word, energy, but different use. That is what a false equivalent feels like. It feels like somebody grabbed one loose similarity and held it up like they have the fucking golden ticket and then tried to buy their way into accountability with it. So here's the fast test. What was the actual question? What got swapped in? And are those two things actually alike in a way that matters? If not, congratulations, somebody just reached under the table and pulled out a different game. So I want you to picture this. You sit down to play Go Fish, right? It's a simple game. Clean rules, and everybody knows around the table knows what's happening, right? From across the table, a person who you're playing with reaches under the table, pulls out some poker chips, fans out their hand, and slaps it down on the table and goes, royal flush. And you're going, no, you don't win. We're not playing poker. But this is literally the move. They say it with so much confidence. They say it fast. They say it like your confusion is proof that they're smarter than you. And if nobody stops the game right there, the room will start to drift towards them. That's false equivalence. Not because poker and Go Fish have nothing in common. They both use cards. That little similarity is all the trick needs. Now, not every comparison is bad. Now, this part matters. So, working with NASA, when I would educate people about the Hubble telescope, I brought a visual, I have a model of it. Lego, sponsor me. So here's my Lego model of the Hubble telescope, right? When I teach about this, I talk about it and I say the Hubble telescope is about the size of a school bus. Now, that's not a false equivalent. Nobody thinks that the Hubble telescope picks up third graders and smells like old vinyl seats. It's going to help you picture something. A metaphor helps you understand. A false equivalent helps someone dodge the point. That context matters. Also, if you're sitting at a campfire hanging out, drink in hand, and someone says, training humans, it takes a ton of energy. Fine. That conversation, that's people just kicking around an idea. That's okay, that's cool. But Sam Altman, dude, you're not sitting at a campfire. He's the CEO of one of the most powerful AI companies in the world. He's being asked a direct question about the environmental impact of his industry. And that's not a brainstorm session. He's being asked for accountability. In this moment, jumping from data centers to human biology, that's not curiosity. It's just deflection wearing a little fake mustache. This move has a history. The tobacco industry got very good at it. By the late 1950s, and even more clearly by the 1960s, the evidence linking smoking to lung cancer was really strong. So what did the industry do? Did they walk out and go, you caught us, we're good? No, of course not. Instead, they widened the frame. They would say things like, a lot of things cause cancer: stress, pollution, other environmental factors. Why are we only talking about smoking? Do you see it? That is the move. Take a specific evidence-based question and swap in a broader, fuzzier category. And later, in one of the most brutally honest internal memos of all time, a tobacco company said the quiet part out loud. They said, doubt is our product. That's the game. Not clarity, not truth, not better reasoning. Just enough confusion to make people stop pressing. That's why this matters. Because false equivalent is not just annoying. It's one of the cleanest ways powerful people blur responsibility without technically answering a question. Let's train your eye and let's make you able to see these. So I'm going to give you a few examples. You're going to tell me if it's a false equivalent or not. Guns don't kill people. People kill people. Okay, so what do you think it is? Yeah, it's a false equivalent. The debate is about gun policy, access, design, and harm. The response reframes it into a philosophical statement about agency, like somebody just wandered into Intro from Metaphysics and wanted extra credit. Nobody said that guns act alone. That was not the question. Okay, so the next one. The human brain is like a computer. What do you think it is? That is a metaphor. It gives you a rough frame for memory, processing, storage, input, output. Useful, totally fine. But the second someone says, therefore, human brains can be upgraded like software, now we've crossed over. That is a false equivalent. Okay, so let's do one more. Someone says, other countries have violence too, why are they only talking about America? Yeah, that's a false equivalent. Because pointing out that problems exist elsewhere doesn't magically erase the version of the problem sitting in front of you. Here's the thing. A lot of people using this move are not stupid. Some of them are very, very smart. And some of them are very practiced at this. Some of them have been rewarded their entire lives for sounding one level more abstract than the person asking the question. That's why it works. It feels smart, it sounds smooth, it gives the illusion of depth. But depth is not the same thing as relevance. That's the whole scam. So Jon Stewart did this beautifully on Crossfire years ago. Okay, hold on, I gotta stop. Let me explain. There was this TV show, it was on cable news, on CNN, and it was this debate show where there was the one guy, I forget his name, I'll put a picture of him here, and then this other guy who you do know, probably Tucker Carlson, that guy, they would argue and have people on who would argue both sides. Anyway, it was dripping with false equivalence. It was not a true debate show. It was just lived in false equivalence. But Jon Stewart went on the show. He simply refused to play the game that they wanted him to play. He kept dragging the conversation back to the table they were actually sitting at. That's the move. You do not have to beat every argument. You do not have to become a full-time debate goblin. You just have to name the switch. You could say that, oh, hold on, those aren't the same thing. That's not the question. That comparison really doesn't hold. You're basically saying, cool hand, but we're not playing that game. That's how you break the spell, all right? A false equivalent is when somebody points to one similarity and uses it to pretend that two importantly different things are basically the same. A faulty analogy is often the engine underneath it, and a metaphor is different because a metaphor will actually help you understand. So a false equivalent is going to help somebody avoid answering for something. So next time someone gives you an answer that feels slick but weird, don't ignore that feeling. Stop and ask, what was the question? What just got swapped in? And are those actually alike in the way it matters? Because that weird feeling in your gut is often just your brain going, hey man, nice poker chips, but this is Go Fish. Look, if this was useful, hit subscribe. I'm going to keep doing these. More logic, more examples, more ways to spot tricks before someone slides them past you. If you made it this far, put Go Fish in the comments so I will know you were there. Or even better, tell me the false equivalence that drives you the most insane. Whether it's at work, in meetings, TV, that family dinner, whatever made you want to just flip over the whole table. Drop it below. Let's name the game. Bye, y'all.